Virginia Powell here.
Sue Sweeting here.
Doug Matheson here.
David Harwood here.
All right, moving forward, if you would please stand. Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone needs to turn their volume down or mute this microphone. Turn the volume all the way down.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the August 11th, 2020 regular meeting minutes? Do I have a first?
Sue Sweeting, so moved.
Virginia Powell second.
Okay. And all those in favor, and please mention your name.
Doug Matheson.
David Harwood, aye.
Okay. Approval of the minutes, August 11th, 2020 closed session meeting. Do you have a motion?
So moved. Sue Sweeting.
Second, David Harwood.
Okay, and those in favor? Ms. Powell?
Virginia Powell, aye.
Sue Sweeting, aye.
Doug Matheson, aye.
David Harwood, aye.
Okay, moving forward, do I have a motion to approve the regular agenda?
Motion so made. Doug Matheson.
Second, Sue Sweeting.
Do we have any discussion? Okay, roll call, Ms. Powell?
Virginia Powell, aye.
David Harwood,
Okay, the regular agenda is adopted. All right, moving forward, the consent agenda. This will be the Patricia Aiken annexation, the Warrenville Drive speed limit consent, and the budget amendment 2020-09. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve consent agenda as presented, Sue Sweeting.
Doug Matheson, second.
And all those in favor, if you would, Ms. Powell?
Virginia Powell, aye.
Sue Sweeting, aye.
Doug Matheson, aye.
David Harwood, aye.
Okay, so the consent agenda is adopted. Okay, now moving forward, our first public comment section, I would request that you maintain your 3-minute limit or less. Now, who do we have first?
Tim Upton.
Mr. Upton, good evening.
Good evening.
Hello, Tim.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, we should be able to now, Tim. Okay, thank you, Mayor Sellers, Town Council, and Mr. Fox for allowing me to actually read this letter live tonight. We appreciate everything that you have done already, and I'd like to share a letter from the Board of Directors of the Blowing Rock Civic Association regarding EMS. On behalf of our undersigned directors and homeowner community, we would like to thank our mayor, town council, town manager, and fire chief who have been advocating to improve ambulance transport response times for many years. We appreciate that the town has invested funds that provide the first responder EMS coverage and the facilities, including our $5 million fire and EMS building on Valley Boulevard. The town and the taxpayers have done their part, so it's time for the county commission to step up and do the right thing for the Blowing Rock taxpayers and the taxpayers throughout the county who live outside of Boone. The taxpayers outside of Boone need to realize that our Service is second rate and must be improved to lower our risk due to extended arrival times for life-threatening emergency calls. The demographics of our effective population in Blowing Rock, that includes seasonal taxpayers, is much older and higher risk than the census populations of Blowing Rock or Watauga County. For all of those reasons, we request that the council adopt a resolution to request the county commission to take the following actions to prioritize public health and safety for the entire county. Number one, permanently locate the new 24/7 crew in our Valley Boulevard facility, allowing the county to return the 9-hour, 5-day crew to the existing stations. Hold a public hearing to evaluate the county commission's EMS policies that drive the outcomes, to include both geographic coverage and average response time, as does the national standard of 90 and 9. The final decision by the county commission is a priority decision that reflects their commitment to protect the health and safety of our taxpayers and is not a budget decision. We all know that government can fund and should fund priorities, starting with public health and safety of their citizens. These are our residents, business owners, and taxpayers convince the county commission to move forward and address our risk and those of the entire county outside of Boone. Thank you, Tim Gupton and the board of directors. I can't hear you, Charlie.
Good evening. Are you on board there? Ron? Ron, if you can hear me, you need to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
There he is. Hello, Ron. How are you?
Very well, Charlie. How are you? Mayor Sellers, council members, and town manager.
Ron, you might
Fox.
want to increase your microphone volume.
Okay. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to read the letter that was sent to the to the Watauga County Commissioners by the Blowing Rock Country Club in support of the longstanding efforts and advocacy of the mayor of Blowing Rock and the town council, fire chief Grantham. To be respectful of the 3-minute time limit, I'm going to go ahead and read the letter, and thank you for the opportunity to do that. Dear Chairman Welch, thank you for meeting on August 21 to discuss EMS transport service for Blowing Rock, concerns and proposals. I respectfully request that you share this letter with the commissioners and read the letter at your September 15, 2020 meeting. The purpose of the letter is to request your consideration of and support for 2 important public health and safety concerns. First, the adoption of a new metric for managing EMS response times in Watauga County. And second, to place a 24/7 ambulance crew in Blowing Rock at the Blowing Rock Fire and Rescue Building on Valley Boulevard. The current metric for managing ambulance response times of an average of 10 minutes fails to adequately take into account a significant percentage of the county which lies outside the Boone area. The National Fire Protection Association 99 standard is a more widely used standard across North Carolina and the USA. This metric accounts for time and geography with a goal to ensure that the county will receive attention within 9 minutes from the time an ambulance is dispatched. Consideration of placing a 24/7 ambulance crew in Blowing Rock has been a longstanding priority and request of Blowing Rock Mayor Charlie Sellers, Town Council members David Harwood, Doug Matheson, Virginia Powell, Sue Sweeting, and Albert Yount. Blowing Rock Emergency Management Services Director and Blowing Rock Fire Chief Kent Graham is also a strong advocate of having a 24/7 ambulance crew based in Blowing Rock. In a financial demonstration of support for a locally based ambulance crew, when the Blowing Rock Fire and Rescue Building was constructed by the town, space was provided for an ambulance, equipment, and an apartment for an ambulance crew. It would clearly be more cost effective for the county to use this space versus constructing or renting a building elsewhere for an ambulance station. An ambulance station in Blowing Rock would not only benefit Blowing Rock, but it would also benefit part of the county and enable the attainment of what is hoped to be the new ambulance response standard of 99. The Blowing Rock Country Club, 75% of our members are age 70 or older, making a local 24/7 ambulance station an urgent priority. Our membership, when adjusted for other members in the home, totals a population of 650 people. The vast majority of our members are local homeowners. Some are seasonal, some permanent residents. Many of our seasonal residents live within an easy 2-hour drive of Blowing Rock and use their homes frequently in the off-season, even when the club is closed. The urgent need for a 24/7 locally based ambulance crew is felt each year when local residents suffer heart attacks, strokes, and injuries requiring fast medical intervention and timely ambulance transport to the hospital. We understand that the health and public safety for all the residents of Watauga County is a high priority for the Watauga County Commissioners. Please consider our request for changing the county ambulance response time from an average of 10 minutes to the more widely used National Fire Protection Standard of 90 and 9. In support of this more appropriate response standard, we also request the establishment of a 24/7 ambulance station in the Blowing Rock Fire and Rescue Building. This new station would be a great service for the public health and safety of the southern part of Watauga County. Thank you for your consideration. The letter is signed by me as president of the Country Club, Phyllis Lester as the former president of the Country Club, and supported by the Board of Governors with copies to the mayor, the town council, and Manager Fox. Thank you so much for the opportunity to read the letter.
Ron, thank you so very much. It's been an ongoing issue for many years, and hopefully we'll see some resolution before long. Okay, moving forward, this was sent to the council along with some ordinances and federal and state law ordinances that entail noise and so on and so forth. Said, good afternoon. Last year I spoke at the council meeting regarding the unbearable amount of noise that trucks are causing because of their excessive speed. I pointed out that the noise was caused mostly, I believe, and still do, because the trucks are going well beyond the 35-mile-an-hour limit and then need to slow down to make the curves going southbound on 321. Then they use their engine to brake, making enough noise to rattle the windows in our house. Although a sign was installed, it has not been effective and the laws are not being enforced. I also understand that many houses are also affected between the Rock Road and Sunset on 321. Now I would like to call attention to the noise pollution we are experiencing with motorcycles. Most of the motorcycles that use 321 are in violation of the North Carolina Statute 20-128, which I have attached to this email. It is short and sweet, but easily is enforceable. The federal law also attached, and I realize the town cannot enforce the federal law, but the North Carolina's law should be enforced. I have talked with many people in the town and strongly believe it is time to do something about the noise pollution of motorcycles and trucks. Thank you. Bob Green, 297 Gideon Ridge Road. Just to go on record, Mr. Green, Kelly Tarleton and the council have had discussions with the state. The state is going to enhance patrols on 321 in the goal of assisting the town in issues. In addition, the state has also agreed to install additional signage on 321, which hopefully this will deter some of it. Everybody, the council, our department heads, everybody is doing their best because everyone's aware that the noise is an issue. So thank you so very much. All right, moving right along. I think that's all the letters we have. Is that correct? Okay, now we have a presentation from the Middle Fort Greenway. We have Keith Pugh on the line. Hey, Keith, how are you?
I'm doing well, sir. Hope you guys are.
We can barely hear you.
Okay. Let me bring my volume up a little bit. Does that help?
It's good.
Okay, fantastic. So let's make sure I can share my screen here. And you should have a cover slide up for the Middle Fort Greenway. Can you just thumbs up, make sure we've got that. All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Manager, and a big welcome to anyone who is streaming and or watching this either live or later on the recorded version. This is a presentation on the Middle Fort Greenway, Section 1. This presentation will be very similar to the one given during the public input meeting for this project on August 11th, 2020. Simply we want to bring you up to date concerning our progress, the proposed alignment for the Greenway. My name is Keith Pugh. I am a senior technical client advisor with Withers Ravenel, who is overseeing the engineering aspects, timely delivery, and all the way through the design, permitting, and into construction for this project. Ultimately, the Greenway is proposed to connect Blowing Rock to Boone. There are approximately 6.5 miles of Greenway proposed. There are 6 sections of this Greenway, and we are looking tonight at Section 1, public comment period, which sought questions and comments, concluded on August 18th. During the public comment period, interested individuals who wanted to provide feedback were encouraged to use an email address that we created specifically for this project. That email address you see on the screen is no longer active since public comment period has ended. We provided a link to the presentation materials on the Town of Blowing Rock's website. And at this point, we have reviewed and compiled the comments and prepared draft responses. That information was provided in your agenda package. So with that, we'll get into a little bit of the project background. This project is funded, or this section is funded by the Eastern Federal Lands Access Program, commonly referred to as EFLAP, for all those who love acronyms. It's an 80% federal funds from Federal Highway Administration with a 20% local match. The estimated construction cost is around $1.5 billion, includes preliminary engineering, right-of-way easements, and the actual construction of the Greenway itself. Our partner agencies in this project are the National Park Service, Federal Highway Administration, the Blue Ridge Conservancy, which has been instrumental in the development of this Greenway, the Town of Blowing Rock, which has played an instrumental role as well, and we've had help from the North Carolina General Assembly as well as the North Carolina Department of Transportation. The 20% local match funding is a compilation of various agencies. You can see all those listed here. Each has contributed money toward the planning and construction of the Greenway. On the planning side, with this being a federally funded project, we must comply with the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, So if you hear the acronym again, engineers were full of them. Which brings us to today in this presentation, which brings information concerning how this project impacts the environment. There are many different types of NEPA documents. You've heard of an EIS, I'm sure, which is an environmental impact statement, a FONSI, which is a finding of no significant impact, and a CE or CADX, which is a categorical exclusion. The categorical exclusion is a series of different construction activities that Federal Highway Administration and other federal agencies have determined doesn't necessarily need to have a full-blown environmental impact statement. It does include a review and evaluation of all the environmental, natural, and physical impacts of the project, and it is used for projects with limited impacts to the existing environment. At the beginning of the project, we started the environmental, natural, and physical review. We contacted the North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources to determine if any facilities are known and documented within the study area. We also contacted U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services to determine if there were any known threatened or endangered species in our study area. The study area is shown as a corridor along the Middle Fork, mainly on the south and east side of the river. The results of those two determinations is that there are no known identified cultural resources within the project area, and there are also no threatened or endangered species identified within the project area. Those are all really good news. Here is a list of the information that came back to us from Fish and Wildlife and cultural resources, and you'll note that there are some flora and fauna within a 1 mile radius of the project, but nothing identified within the study area. Our next step was an archaeological investigation, which is required by the National Park Service. We worked with the Southeast Archaeological Center located in Tallahassee, Florida. We did our work under what is known as the Archaeological Resources Protection Act. There were 31 different shovel tests performed along the greenway alignment, and there were no new sites that were identified along the way. So no further study is needed. These maps show the location of the actual shovel tests, and these are through the Greenway corridor through the National Park Service property. And I do need to make that distinction. These tests were only performed on National Park Service property because it is their requirement that we do that. The white dots that you see along these proposed lines represent the location of those shovel tests. As you'll see on the right-hand graphic, we did look at alternate routes, a couple of variations, alternate routes. We were studying those, trying to get through, around, or under the Blue Ridge Parkway, the route that comes up from 320. We'll eventually evaluate all of those options, and in all likelihood, our preferred option will be some sort of tunnel or culvert under the parkway and the ramp to separate the greenway from the parkway and keep both of those facilities moving safely. Next step was a wetlands and a stream determination for the study area. We identified 8 different streams in the Middle Fork corridor, 13 different wetland areas, and a stormwater control measure, or an SCM, another one of those acronyms that I may use. This is a map of all the water features identified. The streams are shown in blue. You can see the streams coming off here. Wetland areas are shown either in green or in white. And the red roughly highlights the study area that we're looking at for the greenway itself. This graphic is just another way of us showing the corridor and all of the features that are involved. And again, you can see the streams, wetland areas, stormwater control device. So the step following these determinations was to present this information to the public and allow for input. We presented the initial alignment for review and comment on August 11th, 2020. We received those comments. We've reviewed those comments, compiled them, and we have prepared draft responses. Following this is our next step, and it is a major step. We will prepare the categorical exclusion and submit it to NCDOT and the National Park Service for review and concurrence. While that is happening, we will prepare our initial alignment presentation, as well as starting the actual design of the greenway itself. So looking at the project schedule, we are, of course, well into it. We are wrapping up our NEPA document for submittal to NCDOT. We anticipate having that to DOT and the National Park Service by September 18th, so the end of next week. We plan on getting our design goals ready to submit to NCDOT in late October. Acquisition of easements could start later this month. Those will likely take us into December. We do have to work with the National Service on a special use permit, which is similar to an easement. And that is something that we will certainly work on in earnest for the next few months. We'll have to resolve any issues that may come out and incorporate their comments as well. We anticipate approvals of the project and the design sometime in December, with a possible bid advertisement by the end of December, and construction hopefully beginning spring of 2021. Again, I'll note these dates could be revised based on actual review or approval times. So that brings us to the potential alignment, which is shown in pink on these maps. And the corridor itself starts, well, I'll just point out that I'm using this nice laser thing to show you any points of interest as we go through these items. This area is the end of the existing concrete walkway near Tanger Outlet. The greenway will roughly follow, well, it will follow US 321 until we reach the National Park Service property, and it will take off, and then it will cross the 440 property, and then we get back into National Park Service land. Continuing on, this is all on the National Park Service property. We've identified these wetland pockets, and we are trying to avoid those to keep us out of having to do any further environmental work on the permitting side. There are 3 to 4 streams in this area that we will need to cross in some manner. In all likelihood, foot bridges of some sort, culvert if we have to. Again, it'll be something environmentally responsible and financially feasible because we understand the goals of the project. Again, we come up, we cross the Blue Ridge Parkway. In all likelihood, this will be a tunnel or culvert, something along those lines. Avoid another wetland area. Again, pop under the ramp for the parkway, and then follow along the stream until we come to the Foley Center property. As we leave the park, we get onto the Foley Center property. There's already been an easement recorded for this area, but we intend to look at this because we will probably have to flatten these curves out a little bit. We'll have to straighten the alignment out somewhat. Trying to avoid, again, wetland areas that are shown, and this is the stormwater control measure, and we will try to stay completely off of it. Continuing on past or through Foley, wetland area here, try to avoid wetland area down here, and project terminates down at the town limits. So, summary of impacts, which is all good news. There are no cultural resources identified or on a known registry in this corridor. There are no threatened or endangered species in this corridor, but we will certainly look to ensure that we avoid endangered species habitats to make sure we do not destroy those. There's no archaeological evidence determined through our soil tests. And we have one area of potential wetland impact that we will try to avoid as much as we possibly can, depending on the topography of the area. We'll figure that out when we actually get into the heavy duty design. There are 3 streams that we need to cross. And again, we'll look at alternative ways to do that to be both economically and environmentally responsive. So there you go. This concludes this particular presentation. Should you need any additional information or have any general comments or questions, feel free to reach out to Mr. Ken Jesnick. Ken is the project manager on this. He is the engineer of record designing this job for us, or reach out to me. Talk to one of us. You've pretty much both of us. We're in communication that much. We'll be happy to address any comments or questions you have. This presentation, for those that are online or streaming, will be available on the YouTube site following the meeting. And this presentation in its current form is also currently available on the Town of Blowing Rock's webpage. And Manager Fox, that concludes our presentation. So do I need to hand this back to you?
Keith, have you, do you have the public input section also?
I do not have the, I do not have that ready to put up. I do not have that ready to put up on the screen. I can go grab that if you'd like.
Yeah, please do, if you would.
While he's looking, can you hear me by chance? Yes, okay.
Yes, Wendy.
Awesome. Thank you, Keith, so much for that great presentation. It's wonderful to see the progress that Withers Ravenel has made for this project. It's been a slow process, but I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and this is really exciting. I just want to thank the town of Blowing Rock, especially Mayor Sellers and the town council and all of the town staff for everything that you all have done over the last few years. Blowing Rock TDA, all the support has just been incredible, and all of the private donors from Blowing Rock is really what's making this project move forward. So I really just have so much gratitude for all this support in the community as this project pushes forward. There's still a lot of details to work out, but it is definitely seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. So thank you, Withers Ravenel, for doing this hard effort and hard work here.
Thank you. Shane, I had to stop sharing my screen so that I could get off of that particular presentation. And you'll likely have to give me control again so I can show you the comments.
You should have the ability to do so.
Okay, they should be up on the screen now. Boop.
It's coming.
All right. Can you see the comments here for I'm assuming yes.
Yes.
Okay. This virtual world is a little awkward sometimes. Our public comment period, again, was open from August 11th to August 18th. We received multiple comments and questions from 8 different individuals. And Mr. Manager, if you'd like me to, I can step through each one of these and just present those. There was identified a need for cooperation and access between the Middle Fork Greenway and the Mountains to Sea Trail. And our response is we absolutely understand the need to provide access between these 2 facilities with the point of intersection between the Blue Ridge Parkway. We will work with the National Park Service, seek a solution for access between those 2 facilities. That will be worked out during the design process. So once we get into the nuts and bolts of the actual engineering, we'll work with those entities and try to figure out how to connect the 2. We understand the need to keep bicycles and pedestrians or hikers separate because they're intended uses of the trails. The need for a tunnel or a culvert under the Blue Ridge Parkway specifically designed for hikers and bikers on the Middle Fork Greenway, and if possible, construct a tunnel or culvert to get under Blue Ridge Parkway and avoid the second crossing on the access ramp. Our intentions are again to avoid any at-grade crossing between the Blue Ridge Parkway and the Middle Fork Greenway, and we will evaluate the impacts. I don't know if I need to read through all of these or not, but this will give you a feel for the nature of the questions. We will evaluate the environmental impacts, each alternative, as well as the financial impact of grade separated crossings. Obviously, 2 crossings would be more expensive than 1, but from the topography standpoint, we don't know if we can get away with 1. The need for access or a spur trail allowing hikers to enter the MST from the Middle Fork Greenway and discourage bikes on the Mountains to Sea Trail. Perhaps a separate spur on the Blue Ridge Parkway for bikes. Ensure adequate funding for the spur trail and adequate signage for both. Well, the funding for the Middle Fork Greenway, I don't know that it's specifically called out for the trail systems. However, I'm sure that if we can make that happen from an engineering standpoint, we will make that happen somehow from the funding standpoint as well. The MST should remain open throughout construction, and we do understand that, and we will work with the Friends of the MST to ensure that access to the trail remains open throughout construction.
I think we're good, Keith. Yeah, I think we're probably good there.
Fantastic.
I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Wasn't sure how much detail you wanted to go in on these. But if you'd like me to relinquish control of the screen, I'll be glad to do that.
Yes, please. Thank you, Keith. Appreciate your presentation, Wendy. It's been several years, I know, of a project that's been put together to get to this point. So it seems like we're close to seeing dirt moved, which is exciting, obviously. So thank you for that.
All right, Wendy, thank you. Thank you. I know it's been long and hard.
It looks like you said, it's likely to come. Thank you so much. Moving more, this matters.
Chipotle election request.
Mr. Shane Fox and Carl.
Thank you. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate Kent, I believe, is on the line. He is in his car, I believe, if that's not correct. So I think everyone received in their packet a letter from Mr. Tarbutton along with some background information. I know we distributed that out last month and obviously pulled that agenda item due to Kent, his absence. So Ken is on the line, so I'll turn it over to him if that's okay and let him give you the background information and walk through his his request.
Thank you, Shane. Y'all hear me all right? I do appreciate you postponing it for last month, so we only had a medical problem and I couldn't get back from it. So thank you. And forgive me for being in my car. I'm heading to my uncle's funeral on the Eastern Shore and I guess we couldn't be together anyway. But thank you for hearing our request tonight and appreciate those that village. It's about Chatola Lake. You know, it's our natural resource for the town, and though it's a beautiful entrance coming into town, I want to give just a real brief history about the other merits as I make a request to the town. You know, in 1999, Chatola Lake was called on by the mayor, then J.B. Lawrence, to provide water. We had 2 years of a real severe drought. Many of y'all will remember that. Johnny Lentz, working for Public Works for the town many years, tells me that over the next 20 years, we provide a little more than 750 million gallons of water from our lake into the town reservoir because we all needed it. JB had called me and told me they were about 7 to 10 days from running out of water. And the Park Service, who used to allow the water to be drained over from Bass Lake, now required all kinds of engineering studies and environmental impact studies that were going to take quite a period of time, and the town was going to run out of water. So we signed a 1-year agreement with the town of Blowing Rock for no fee, of course, to take water. And for a little over 20 years, water was drawn out of the lake. We were, of course, to do that. When we turn on our spigots, we all want water. Stormwater management's the other side of it. Years ago, we had to do an assessment of the lake for North Carolina, who was evaluating dams, and they were worried that a full breach of our dam would cause a lot of damage. Happily, when we did the study, it didn't, and it was considered a low-risk dam, and it is still to this day. When that study was done, the Army Corps of Engineers reported that 84% of all the stormwater created in Blowing Rock flows through the lake, where it dumps out all its dirt before it continues down into the New River. As the town continues to do stormwater projects, I know there's 5 on the board that are being considered right now. I appreciated meeting with Town Manager Shane and George from the New River Conservancy just this past week as they talk about various ways to really prevent more coming downstream to us and to the New River. But I know as we continue to build in Blowing Rock, beautiful project, the new Winkler Mercer Street from us, the townhouse projects going in. As old properties are torn down and Chatola and others see building continue, we know that more impervious area is created. So we know we'll always be downstream to that. If you come over to Chatola Lake during a good heavy rain, and heaven knows this season we've seen some good heavy rains, you'll see that dark chocolate cloud flowing into our lake, which is all that silt being dumped in there. Luther Snyder, back in his day, created a cofferdam right beside of the security entrance there. And you see that cofferdam is built to drop water out drop the silt out prior to it flowing into the lake. Now, honestly, when it flows like it did last Tuesday and it's dropping, what, 3 to 4 inches in an hour, nothing stops that because it doesn't have time to drop out. But in most circumstances, it has time to drop out. I provided the town council with pictures of that cofferdam and how it's now completely full. There are areas you can walk across because it's completely full of dirt. And that's why I'm here tonight, because it needs to be dug out. You know, the town helped Chatola Lake years ago, back about 2015. We found that the lake was on average 2 to 3 feet deep. We had a choice of, my joke was we can dredge it or we can mow it. The town certainly relies on drastic occasions to get water, but you know, more than that, it relies on it to take all of that silt that we all put downstream to stop from getting in the New River. So the town, after doing a lot of research, and in your package, you'll find all kinds of information about that. I've added all kinds of attachments showing the research that was done back then, the bids that W.J. Hampton gave to use the dredge line to dig it out. Another company's bid is in there, and the cost it would take to haul it away was above $500,000, and we were all really stunned that it was that much. And I was asked then to go out and find other bidders. We found equipment that we could buy ourselves and learn to dredge it, which was half that cost. That's what we did. The town provided $200,000 generously to us at that time. The owners at Chatola and ourselves provided about $80,000 more in the labor to get all that work done, because that was the bids we had over $500,000 were to dig out just 3 to 4 feet. We dug it out to a level 10 feet, 20 feet down at that dam. Let me tell you why I think that the town agreed back then to do that. Chatola is different than many of the other sites in town that really get stormwater. Meadowbrook's a good example that deals with the town's stormwater and erosion as well. I think first it's because the property is large enough to remove this tremendous amount of silt. That's an 8-acre lake. And nobody else in town really has anything big enough to collect and store that soil and get it out of the town and deal with it so it doesn't damage all the wildlife downstream in the New River. I think that is why that cofferdam is there, is to stop it from getting in the lake, because it's a lot cheaper and easier to get it out of that cofferdam area than it is Chatola Lake. It has the capacity to supply water to the town during droughts, as we've discussed. Gas Lake certainly has a lot more water in it than our lake, but it doesn't refill. And that's what we found out during that drought, was all of the springs that we have piped into that lake as we constructed buildings around Chatola make it fill up so much faster. I think the third thing is the town addresses all these stormwater issues, and they're doing a pretty good job of it. I was very impressed with when the town council negotiated over many years with DOT before the construction of the increased lanes on the highway, that they got some really good stormwater management done. However, as you do these stormwater projects around town, and I see ones you're doing right now, and it's going to make a big improvement, but you'll never cure this one. We'll always be this downstream place where soil is going to arrive. So this one's going to continue to be the buffer for the entire town. 84% of all the water flowing through Blowing Rock, as much good stormwater management as you're doing, it will continue to arrive here. And I don't know how you cure it here, because you've got to have a collection point. The Army Corps told us years ago when we got our dredging permits that many years ago, their philosophy was they liked lots of little ponds everywhere to collect stormwater. And they changed that policy about 30 years ago into wanting one big basin. They liked larger areas to collect stormwater so it could be controlled there and have a longer period for the silt to drop out of the water. Because when water's rushing into that lake, 8 acres is enough before it goes over the big Chatola Dam to drop out that silt. Chatola condo owners, timeshare owners, and the company ourselves contribute about a little over $400,000 in property taxes every year, not including any of the houses there at Chatola, just those 3 entities. I mention this because the owners maintain the roads, repave them, light them, and cover all the maintenance and electrical costs. So as they pay property taxes, I think it's fair for them to come back and say, hey, help us with this project. This is something that that you're putting into Chatola Lake. Help us keep that clear so it's a good resource for stormwater management. We're paying our property taxes like everyone else in town does, but there's things that Chatola doesn't get. They've chosen to keep those roads private at the present time, and I think they'll continue to. But that saves lots and lots of money as they take that out of the property tax space, and the town doesn't have to deal with it. Yet all benefit from Chatola Lake, and so we would really respectfully ask the property taxpayers, the Blue Rock Town Council, to consider paying the cost of removing that silt from this cofferdam. In your package, you'll find a bid. It's $19,411.60 to help us really maintain this vital resource for the town. Many communities plan for the future of such expenses in their budgets by adding permitting costs of new and remodel construction to help offset the cost of stormwater management. And it might be something the town might want to consider in future planning. But I know that's not been done in the past. And I'm well aware that you've got a big hole in this year's budget, as do most of us in business. We're closed for 2.5 months. There's lots of businesses in town that have suffered this year, and I know that your budget has suffered as well. So what we'd like to propose tonight is that we go ahead and do the work. If I wait, you can come over and see it. That dirt is going into the lake, and it's going to be much more expensive and much harder to take out, and we don't want to do it that way. So we would propose tonight that we go ahead and do the work at our expense, and that you consider in next year's budget to pick up the expense of this removal cost, and that the town would agree to reimburse us in 2021. The package has got all kinds of information. It's got all the illustrations. It's got the bids. It's got the past history. Anything else I might tell you. We would just ask that you help us keep this vital resource open so that in the future, we don't back soil up into town, it doesn't fill up our lake, and that we can continue to use it for a good cause. That's all I got.
Thank you, Kent. Ladies and gentlemen, council members, essentially, Mr. Tarbutton has requested that we consider assisting with the dredging of the copper dam area at a cost of about $19,400. Am I correct, Shane? So, and/or consider putting into our 2021, 2022 budget. What are your thoughts?
We met on Friday of last week and reviewed several areas of town. This area is not something as of right now they felt like could be funded. Some of the potential projects they have, a larger scale project was discussed with Mr. Tarbutton at that time, and I think they've discussed it in the past, something that could, I guess, potentially come later down the road if that was a choice that he and Chautauqua made. But the cofferdam is not part of a project that they're willing to take on, or I don't think they qualifies right now for what they're willing to take on. Just the cofferdam.
I'm not comfortable right now messing with our budget, with the fall coming and the unknown, with things getting shut down again, possibly. We rely so much on property tax and sales tax. We bounce back. Luckily, last weekend, they bounced back. My concern is I know you want to go ahead and do it. I hear what you're saying, Kent, for the 2021 budget, but I'm just not comfortable in spending during a pandemic.
Yes, he did. He said 2021, 2022, if you could consider it.
Okay. Doug Matheson. I feel like we've had a lot of things that has popped up here and we haven't budgeted for. And my feeling on this, you know, we have frozen all our departments ever since March on spending. Everything has went through the town manager. We've been as conservative as we possibly can, not knowing what the future is going to hold. I would rather us take this and discuss it at our winter retreat and decide then. I just feel like right now, what we have going on, the way we froze salaries, the way that we've done everything, that we just don't, I can't see doing it right now. I'd rather just discuss it and look at a retreat about budgeting it maybe for next year.
Okay, I think that maybe general consensus is to hold off on a decision this evening and to revisit this possibly at the winter retreat. So I don't believe a motion is required for this, is it? Motion to table. Yes. What? Did you unmute?
That work? I said I would support any kind of a compromise. Hear what Doug's saying, I hear what Virginia's saying, but I think somehow this becomes a moral obligation from this town to Chatola. Somehow, sometime. Now, I do know that a great contributor to a lot of this silt has been found. Is that right? Behind Papa Joe's. It is.
I think you most,
factor.
yes, sir. I think you most definitely can say that it is a factor into it. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that was the purpose of the meeting on Friday was not only to take a look at that area, but take a look at essentially that entire stream, tributary of the Middle Fork to take a look into what type of potential options are out there from sediment and erosion issues.
Well, my statement is I will support any compromise we want, but except doing absolutely nothing and leaving Chatola hanging.
Well, I'll make a motion. I have. I will make a motion that we table this for discussion at our retreat this winter, our January retreat.
I'll second this meeting.
We have a motion to table until our retreat for discussions and meeting seconded.
And I just think Chatola's been a good neighbor. And if you go and look during the rain, where water's going, it does end up there. So I think we need to be good neighbors. We need to be good neighbors as well.
Okay, any further discussion?
Yes, this is David Harwood. I concur with Sue that Chatola's been an excellent neighbor, and I remember not having any water, not being able to wash dishes by hand and wash our cars. Very appreciative of their community mindedness. Between now and the winter retreat, I would like for our town manager, the staff, and town engineer to potentially look at things that would give us an opportunity to perform at that retreat in terms of what we're really looking at in terms of stormwater, where major contributors of that are, what some mitigation factors could be, because if 86% of the water is flowing through Chatola Lake, does that mean 86% of the silt is coming off our streets, or is it coming from other sources? And I know that we are putting stormwater retention measures in place with new development. And I would like a little history on when we started doing that and what projects don't have that. I just like to operate from a position of knowledge, because this is something that's going to continue to be coming up, and we need to have a more proactive stance on addressing it.
Okay, thank you, David. Do we have any other discussions before we vote? Okay, first off, I'm going to say we'll roll call this. How do you vote, Ms. Powell?
Can you repeat the?
Yes. It was requested that we table this for further review at the winter retreat, which was Doug Matheson made that motion. Ms. Sweeting seconded that motion, and we had further discussion from Mr. Harwood requesting additional informational impact studies or whatever. Okay.
Yes.
What nations will be added to that and better retreat?
Albert votes aye.
Sue Sweeting, aye.
Doug Matheson, aye.
David Harwood, aye.
All right. Thank you, Tim. You all be safe in your travels. The motion passes to table it until such time to be discussed at our winter retreat. And Shane Fox and our other department heads will be getting with yourself and others to get detailed information on how the overall impact would be to the Chicola Lake. Okay.
We appreciate the consideration, and I appreciate you doing the research. I think you'll find what we're telling you is true. A lot of dirt comes in that lake. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. All right, moving on. Let's see here. 321 Valley Boulevard update. Planning Director Kevin Rothrock. Might want to unmute, Kevin.
How about now?
Gotcha.
Good? Good?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Mayor and Council, thanks for the opportunity. I just wanted to give you a quick update on where we are with study of the Valley Boulevard recommendations. We came to you at the August meeting, and since then we met with Planning Board. Planning Board established a subcommittee to study these issues and come up with some solutions, whether it be code amendment or plans or something like that. So the subcommittee consists of Chairman Pete Guarini, Pete Page, Mike Page, and Bill McCarter. And we started meeting on August 24th for about 2 hours. We met again on the following Monday. We did not meet this week, but we will pick up again next week. And we've started looking at some of those items that I presented to you last month, limiting commercial building materials, limiting or revisiting the building height and setbacks and a combination of those, reviewing architectural elements and looking at some other elements that we may want to see on Valley Boulevard, reviewing subjective language that's in our code, and studying that and see how that helps or hinders projects as they come forward, or may hinder council as they make decisions. So we're reviewing that. Reviewing specific use categories and possibly limiting some of those, as was mentioned in the study. And as you requested us to also look at evaluating our current color chart for any modifications that we could find in that, and maybe limiting some of the colors that are currently on there. So our subcommittee has been meeting every Monday, and we'll continue to do that over the next couple of weeks. Once we have some draft language put together, we would like to present that to the full planning board. And then before we come to council, we'd like to have a public meeting, especially with the property owners that are involved on Valley Boulevard, and allow them to hear what we're saying and see what we're seeing before we go to a full public hearing, and kind of get the public input at that point. That's kind of where we are. I'll be glad to answer any questions at this point.
Kevin, thank you. Sweet. In discussing stormwater and runoff, is there another subcommittee that's looking at that issue?
We sent that over to McGill Engineering to study that. Got an echo, I guess. But we've already talked with Doug some on that, and we have not updated since that. We've had some other issues we've been handling, but I'll follow up with Doug later this week and see where we stand on that.
Are you going to add the Sue Sweeting again, the Blue Ridge Conservancy?
Yes.
As partners. And then what are you targeting for your schedule of completion?
I didn't put a schedule. We're just meeting every week and trying to stay on task. I don't know how long some of this will take, but I'm a little reluctant to give a schedule given where we're going with it, but we do have a good subcommittee to study.
Would you be able to give us an update at retreat in January?
Oh gosh, yes. I hope we're done. I hope we're done before then. I guess I gave you a schedule, but I hope we're done with this before then.
Thank you. That's what I wanted.
Okay.
Kevin, this is Charlie. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for your hard work and the board's hard work. Thoughts on that, Shane?
Yes, absolutely. I think we've had at least 2 Monday meetings. Is that correct, Kevin? You nod. Had back-to-back Monday meeting. So I think it's a wonderful committee. I've sat in on a little bit of it and heard some of the conversation that's going on. I think they're heading in the right direction. It's a pretty large undertaking for them to take on, but as long as I think they stay on task and continue to meet Mondays, each Monday, and move forward, Kevin will be here each month between now and the retreat, if it's not complete, to give us an update during that time.
Okay. Thank you so very much. Moving forward, official reports, comments. I just want to say thanks to our department heads. The weekend was in our little town was very, very busy. We had broken water line issues. We had very unfortunately we lost some deaths in our area, and our prayers go out to those families. And we all are there for them. And let's see, on a lighter note, we had the ribbon cutting for Memorial Park today. As I stated earlier, thanks to the council and private-public partnership between the town and TDA and the citizens. I think what I'm understanding, they're calling now Sam and Sam, but I think that's Sam Hess and Sam Glover. And I want to say thank you for those. I mean, the citizens jump up to the plate, the council jump up to the plate. We've got a nice, pretty park, and that's a lot for our community and our citizens. So that's all I have. Thank you. Ms. Powell.
Just had one experience that I think we need to look at. The other day I was on Green Hill. I think it was Friday, maybe it was Saturday. Headed toward the Parkway, and I know that there are 2 stop signs there that we all decided and agreed to put there. And I was coming from 321 to the Parkway to go show property to a client down in Deep Gap. And I know those signs are there. I voted to put up those signs, but I think we need to think about taking them down. They caught me unaware, even though I know they're there. That's a very curvy road. It was a beautiful sunny day, and I had tourists coming up on those stop signs in fog or icy covered roads or the dark of a winter snowy night. So I'd like for us to think about, like David said about the silt, using some good information from the DOT. We didn't take time to do that before. See if those clear lines of view, and if those 2 stop signs are really safe for our town to be put there. And then I just had a quick question for Shane. When are the tax bills coming out?
So I would say the tax bill should come out very soon. So we've been working with Watauga County. There was some software issues. Ms. Hubner is here. There was some software issues that took place in conversion between their software and our software. And I know she and Ms. Norman have been working for a couple of weeks now daily on trying to get that problem solved along with the software companies. Would you like to add anything, Hillary? So just in summary, since Ms. Hoodner did not have a microphone, it is a Watauga County software issue that both Blowing Rock and the town of Beach Mountain are working with the county, and they're aware of it. I've spoken to the county manager, and everyone is hopefully working towards resolution of getting those tax bills out. The original data that was sent over with a variance, a fairly large variance, and that's where it began. And so they're trying to work through that variance itself so we can send out correct bills, obviously.
Thank you, Ms. Powell. Thank you, Shane. Thank you, Hillary. Albert Young.
We put in, the town council voted to put in two stop signs on Green Hill.
At Green Hill Circle.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
In the curve of the road there.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I just feel I have to say this about the ambulance thing. Now, I don't know if it's gone south, but in the year 2011, my wife was taking chemotherapy. And on 4 occasions, she could not get her breath. And I called 911, main fire station, the EMTs came within minutes, stabilized her. On one occasion, it was a huge snowstorm. They had her stabilized and the Watauga Medic ambulance was waiting out front. So I don't want anyone to think that this situation we have now can't work. I don't see how she could have been transported any quicker because she had to be stabilized to start with. Has it gone south? That's a question I'm asking somebody. Has our service gone south?
Absolutely. I'll be more than happy to weigh in. I don't think the service has gone south by any means. I think what the request is to have a full-time ambulance here. So depending on where that ambulance may be at any given time, when someone dials 911, if the ambulance isn't here in Blowing Rock, then it's obviously a much quicker response time than if it's not sitting here in Blowing Rock. And depending on the time of day and depending on the situation, that ambulance could be 10 or 12 or more minutes away. And so I don't think that it's gone south as much as it's improving and allowing for us to have a full-time truck here, so there is no off times.
No possibility of off time. That would not interfere, Kent, with your first responders coming.
I would say that the effect of the pandemic and the changes in the protocols for our tiered response system is what we're experiencing that accentuates the longer response times from the primary transport unit. That is to say that a certain percentage of the calls we are not responding to now under direct orders. So people are waiting just as long, people are waiting just as long as they always have for that primary transport unit. But for a certain percentage of the calls, we're not initiating that first tier of response, and it's just accentuating that wait. Okay.
And I would just add, as you recall, I think it was last month I mentioned during COVID, the decision was made at the county level for our Blowing Rock Fire and Rescue, along with all other first responders in the county, to not respond to Alpha, Bravo, or Charlie calls just Delta and Echo, which are the two most life-threatening calls. And so I think what we're seeing is those are normal calls, the Alpha Bravo Charlie calls that Blowing Rock Fire and Rescue and other first responders would have all responded to initially. And so that initial response time of what we average is about 6 minutes or less here in town is now no longer there on those calls. And so it is being more, further insinuated to see that.
So it appears to answer my question about going south, it might be yes.
I wouldn't say going south as much as there's now a larger light, a spotlight, perhaps on what times actually are, if that's a fair assessment to say. I don't think there's really any change there, other than the fact that we no longer may be the first truck to arrive. We may not arrive at all, depending on the type of call that it is.
Okay.
Not jumping out of terms, but just trying to answer something I was going to answer in a minute when it got around. Is next week, hopefully there'll be a meeting between, not trying to answer out of terms, but to answer part of your question next week, there will be a meeting between Craig Sullivan and our chief on some issues and things with the EMS. Luckily they have asked for this meeting this time.
So that's a plus.
So that's a plus.
Big plus.
A big plus. We'll just.
What's the purpose of the meeting?
I think to talk with us on some issues, a lot of issues that we're dealing with right now. One of them, like sometimes we don't think the 12 hours is here as much as the full 12. Other issues, and to see what we can come up with. And Craig's estimates, I don't know exactly what all that we may be having on the line.
This piece, Craig Sullivan contacted us and specifically requested a meeting in reference to current data that he has pulled and analyzing that data over different times, data by month, data by day of week, and he's got the last, year to date numbers to look at, and he just would like to talk about that data and talk about some possibilities.
Who'll be attending? Just two of you now?
Yeah.
This week?
Well, this was quite a weekend for emergency services, and I want to thank all of them for the hard work that they did. I think it was a difficult weekend, I think for everybody, but they were the ones who were attending. So thank you for your service. I also would like to commend Matt Blackburn and his team who fixed a major water leak, I would say, by my house. And someone in my neighborhood reported it. There were people willing to help. The police were there, and one of Mac's workers was there in less than 15 minutes. So thank you very much. And we didn't lose water, so it was very nice. Thank you.
Doug Matheson.
I'd like to echo off what Sue had said and you had said. This was one of the most tragic weekends overall for the whole county that we've had in a while, and it has put our emergency services to the test this weekend. He probably don't want to hear it. I've got a couple of things I want to say. I would like to tell everyone that doesn't know it is our chief even had some tragedy this weekend. His mother pretty much lost her house Friday night to a structure fire. So I'm wishing our chief well, and any help that us at council can be to you and to your mother, please let us know. A little bit brighter note, during a ribbon cutting up here that we had for Toastery, I got to talk with the aides of Senator Burr and Tillis, and they have sent me information that I have passed along to Dr. Elliott about some grants that he might be able to help us as far as broadband to the kids out here that do not have any. I've talked with, I'm sorry, I forget her name right now, who took over the IT position at Watauga, and she's let me know there's about 120 kids out there right now who don't have internet service, you know, and they're getting hot boxes out, but these are some that just don't have internet service at all.
That's for the whole county.
Right, and this is for the whole county. Our problem, like I said, that we run into up here is we're a tier 3 county. They actually said it may not help Blowing Rock much because of our position in Blowing Rock. I've been trying to meet, I try and meet twice a year with our commissioners, and I've met with 3 of them so far. I'm still waiting to hear back from 2 of them about setting up a meeting. It's just the time of year that I try and get together with them and talk to them about everything. We've talked about sales tax, taxi tax, COVID, EMS, public transportation. The county, we've really spent a little bit of time also talking about public transportation, of getting something between Boone and Blowing Rock because of the unemployment over here, or the need for employment over here from a lot of our businesses. Is we're trying to figure out a way of getting an apple cart to run to maybe hopefully bring students from that would like to work over here from Boone to over here, and being able for them to have a way back and forth. This is something that the Transportation Committee, I've asked our town manager to sit in on these meetings because he's also part of the transportation, and it's something that we're trying to look at of getting between Boone and Blowing Rock, is getting an apple cart run from here back and forth at least a couple of times a day. So that's about it for me.
Thank you, Doug. Mr. Harwood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a couple of things that would fall on the other side of the coin. I would designate them as that. First, I'm appreciative to the Blowing Rock Civic Association for putting the ambulance back in the forefront. I think we all have the same goal, and I'm glad we're talking about it. On the other side of that coin, one of the things I feel like is not relayed is the credentials and expertise that our fire and rescue department have. We have one of the best equipped, most qualified first responders in the state. And I was relaying this to someone, and they said, I did not know anything about that. And I think that it might behoove us to include some of that dialogue maybe in our water bill, in our newsletter, that if I go down, I want Kent Graham and his staff to respond more than I do an ambulance to respond, because they're, in many cases, much more qualified to do so. Another one that's kind of falls on the other side of the coin is the playground. Everybody has already mentioned that, so I won't go into it, but I think that project was executed flawlessly, and it turned out beautifully. Kudos to Jennifer Brown, to the town staff, to our town manager. It's great. The other side of the coin, though, is the economic drop that really is going to be, and is already. At the ribbon cutting, I was talking to Susie Barker. She was relaying to me about the comments that her father had said about how many children were in the Blowing Rock market over the weekend. And it was like, where did all these kids come from? It's because of the playground. And those kids bring their parents with them. Those parents spend money. So there's an economic impact to that playground that would be hard for us to measure, but it's there. And then, as Doug has already mentioned, I wanted to send my prayers along to the Graham family, thinking about you, and if the Harwood family can do anything, we'd certainly like to. Thank you.
All righty. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, a 10-minute recess, and then we are going into, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Fox. I thought you already gone on vacation.
You have my apologies.
You have my apologies.
Not yet, Mr. Mayor. So I, soon. So not much longer. Just a few things. I won't spend a lot of time before we go into closed session. Obviously echo several of your points. It was a tough weekend, tragic weekend, and our police department and fire and rescue on every one of those calls were the initial response. So they were there at the very beginning of each one of those. And so prayers to all of them, just doing what they do, but dealing with a very difficult weekend. Again, kudos to Public Works and Mr. Blackburn and his staff. I think it was somewhere around 7:30, 7:45 in the morning on Labor Day. Just to add one more piece to Ms. Sweet's comment, it was not it was an early morning call of that water leak. And so they were there within 15 minutes. And I think early afternoon, 1 o'clock or so, had that fixed. When I was up there, it was a pretty good river of water flowing down. So kudos to their staff for putting that together. Chestnut drainage is well underway. That project began last week. And so we're in week number 2 of that project. They're making good headway. So if you live in that area, I know several of our council members do. I'm sure you're seeing the progress firsthand right there. So that's another update. 2 updates of things coming to you in October that we've had a chance to have some progress meetings. One being the crosswalks at 221 Sunset and the Brom area. McGill and Associates and I met with DOT last week. I think that was on Thursday or Friday. I'm getting my days confused now, and walked through several options, received feedback from them on locations and things of that nature with line of sight and cone of vision. So Doug Chapman, who's on the call, is working closely with DOT right now to bring options to the table in the October timeframe. So that'll be brought to you with budget items or budget forecasted for those projects. Same with the bulk tanks. You approved that last month on the consent agenda. That bid package is ready and will be sent out, and that'll be ready for approval potentially at the October meeting also. So those are 2 things we had talked about last month that will indeed be in October. Both of those should be on the business section of the agenda for discussion in October. And the last thing I had here, we spoke about this last month and even the month before, speeding on 321. A big thank you to Blowing Rock Police Department and North Carolina Highway Patrol for running some extra calls, or I'm not sure Chief is on the line, but essentially forth, I guess, a larger effort, especially weekends. Last weekend, I know we had quite a few officers out there along with the North Carolina Highway Patrol. Thank you to Mr. Cully Tarleton for assisting and putting that together. So with that, that's my update for tonight, and I apologize.
Once again, Mr. Fox, you have my apologies. You will be sorely missed. We will be lost without you, but we will do our best to survive.
Not resigning, just vacation.
Well, I'll tell you what, it says a lot. We have some of the best, I mean, EMS, to Public Works, to Parks and Rec, to administration, to police. We've got departments that are second to that. So, you know, we just all do a great job. So we just hope you have a very enjoyable and relaxing vacation, and I hope you can lose your cell phone, okay? But at least for a short period of time. That being said, we're going to take a short recess for about 10 minutes, and we will be going into closed session. And we expect no decisions to be made during that closed session. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you all have a safe and joyful week.